Yang jimbo dan himi jang zone munum jimbo nga gyata bakar targan santo shermarto. Tumba tirje jan la ki sham tsar mechan rawar seringi jan kamsa jawar tukji shan la yilarma. Jigme Phuntsok Rinpoche sora de gongje topan pawar shinji lo, gongje topan pawar shinji lo, gongje topan pawar shinji.
Profound and subtle Dharma is rarely encountered in eons. Now we can hear and follow it. May we realize the Tathagata's meaning. To liberate sentient beings, please generate bodhicitta before today's teaching. Wow, it is a bit warm today. It is quite rare to have this kind of weather at our Larung Gar. Now we will teach the Sutra of Great Liberation. Regarding the Sutra of Great Liberation, whether called the Great Liberation Sutra or the Liberation Sutra, it mainly refers to the Liberation Sutra. When hear this way, the meaning is very clear. Otherwise, the Sutra of Great Liberation seems difficult to understand. We are currently teaching the confession section of the Sutra of Great Liberation with Shakyamuni Buddha, the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas of the 6 directions, together with all the celestial beings and worldly spirits and deities serving as witnesses. Prince Virtuous to see, and the 3,000 people previously made 3 passages of confession requesting to confess. These words of confession in other sutras essentially share the same phrasing. Today we continue the teaching. Also, Bhagavan, for limitless eons until meeting with this body, this life. Once again, they made requests before the Bhagavan. We sentient beings, of course, we used here at that time referred mainly to Prince Virtuous to see and his 3,000 people. Actually, they represent other beings present at that time, and they also represent all of us beings in the future. We are also included. We sentient beings from beginningless time until today, having attained this body in the present, this wretched body bag, this body, we have committed especially many wrongdoings. What wrongdoings or violated property belonging to the saṅgha, stealing or misusing it. In Tibetan, these properties of the saṅgha were mentioned before, either committing theft, having stolen the property of the saṅgha, or using and enjoying it arbitrarily for one's own pleasure. As for property belonging to the saṅgha, in Tibetan it means collective property of the entire saṅgha community. In some other versions, Jauti refers to property of the saṅgha from the 4 directions, east, south, west, and north, perhaps with a broader scope, referring to the property of the saṅgha from all 4 directions. Then again, we violated, and violated here means either stealing or just using it as one likes, that's the sense, the property of the saṅgha from the 10 directions, even broader in scope than before. The saṅgha from the 10 directions, east, south, west, north, the 4 corners, above and below, the 10 directions, meaning an even more expansive scope, property of the saṅgha from the 10 directions, also violated property of the present saṅgha, the things right here before us, immediate retribution in this life, that is to say, the saṅgha's property that is gathered right before our eyes, or violated property of the 5 divisions of the saṅgha. We touched on this yesterday, the 5 schools, property of the saṅgha from the 5 divisions, even down to what belongs to just a single monk, the property of one monastic or all property of the donors. Donor property is what still belongs to the patrons. It's what they'll offer to the saṅgha in the future. A donor means a patron. Because they will offer it later, it might not have reached the saṅgha's hand yet, but we should confess for any misuse of these properties too. Here we can say they confess passage by passage from the larger scope of saṅgha property to the smaller scope of saṅgha property, as well as what belongs to individual monastics and what will be offered to the saṅgha in the future. If we misappropriate or use them as we please, then this mistake is extremely great. So today, before the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, we openly confess one by one. We also, from beginningless eons, relying on the 3 jewels in the saṅgha, might have damaged property of the saṅgha, some of it on purpose, some unintentionally. Some people simply because they do not know the discipline. In the discipline, the saṅgha is an exceptionally serious object of respect, especially food items for the saṅgha, like food for communal offerings. Misusing these is extremely serious. So our former guru, His Holiness Jigme Phuntsok Rinpoche, always used to place special emphasis on this point. In our institute, as well as property of the saṅgha from the 10 directions, we should certainly manage these things well. The same goes for us. what you should use, you can use. Otherwise, we should be very careful with saṅgha property. For example, if some property is specifically offered to the saṅgha, you can't just use them to build statues or roads. Now, in our institute, the money for communal meal offerings is all distributed. If a meal can't be provided at that time, the money will be given directly to the monastics. We do not dare use it for anything else, like road construction, building assembly halls, other aspects. These are not permitted. In a certain sense, it seems like they are all merit. You may think there's no problem. But relying on the saṅgha, the most crucial items are what they consume. Buying food, property for food items, those requires our careful attention. There is a sutra called the Sutra of Hungry Ghosts, questioning Maudgalyayana. It's about hungry ghosts questioning Maudgalyayana in the sutra. The sutra is not very long, translated by Anshigao. In it, many hungry ghosts come with their questions. There are various questions, but one in particular. One ghost said, "When my karma manifests, I have a bottle. As for this bottle involuntarily, I see some things inside it. I keep using a spoon to pour them over my own body. Then my body gets burned. It is extremely painful. What is the reason for this?" Maudgalyayana replied, "Previously you dealt with saṅgha property." Back then there was much of this kind of wealth, what we just called a zhao ti saṅgha property. The zhao ti saṅgha property was not distributed after the visiting monks left. You distributed it among yourselves. Because of this reason, you are now a hungry ghost. So for those of us who are managers of property, the stewards, when arranging the property of the saṅgha, you should really be careful. Otherwise, if you're not careful, you might have good intentions, but if you do not understand the discipline or the serious nature of these offerings, we might misappropriate the funds or just give them to others based on our own mindset. That is absolutely not permitted. It is very dangerous. You have to certainly pay attention. Saṅgha property is a serious matter. We, from beginningless time until now, have surely relied on the property of the saṅgha. Management might not have been very thorough, or there were various situations. We should confess all of these one by one. You see, to protect the saṅgha's property, to keep everything safe, we follow certain worldly methods. We have strict requirements. I ask the departments in charge, like a discipline committee or a board of supervisors. We will sometimes conduct spot checks. This year, in the process of visiting our various departments to understand things, there should not be any major problems. But I hope that in terms of financial accounts and such, no one relies solely on their own conscience as a guarantee. On one hand, you should have a conscience, but once there is some talk and you just say, "I'm clean," no one will necessarily believe you. Think about it. If someone is a thief, they'll surely say, "The 3 jewels are my witness. I didn't steal." If they dare to steal, they'll dare to say that. That is of no use. We should ensure that every month, for the saṅgha's finances, we have accountants, cashiers, and managers. When I first established the Vajra demon subduing island at the very beginning, every month the general reports were given to me for signing. But now, because the volume is quite large, I don't look at them one by one. However, our finance department has been implementing this. Everyone should stay mindful of this. Any property related to the saṅgha, whether it's buildings or any items for enjoyment, we should be very careful. This is another section we should confess. Next, or falsely claiming, "I have attained the true dharma, the 4 dhyanas, and the 4 fruits." The period after true dharma should not be used. They are connected. The meaning is that one falsely claims this, telling a great lie. It does not mean, "I heard a teaching and understand a dharma." That's not what it means. I have attained some of the great things in the true dharma, the 4 dhyanas, stream enterer, once returner, non-returner, arhatship, and so on. Then they use these claims to create negative karma, because when someone tells lies like this, they certainly defraud people of money and do illegal things. So unwholesome causes and conditions, these lies inevitably create bad situations, and many wrongdoings are created. For everything stemming from such negative karma, we confess them all one by one before the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. Logically speaking, for those of us, there should be none, right? Since beginningless time, perhaps there have been instances of telling great lies. At the Institute, whether you're a lay people or a monastics, claiming supernatural powers is not permitted. Whether you have supernatural powers or not, I really don't know. If you really do and you're just dying to talk about it, come see me first. I'll give you a certificate. Then you can say, this is authentic. Previously, when His Holiness Jigme Phuntsok Rinpoche was with us, as I recall, there was also a Dakin named Maima. She would talk about the joy and suffering of the deceased. Later, Lama Gyatso would say some things too, but that was specifically authorized by His Holiness Jigme Phuntsok Rinpoche. But now His Holiness Jigme Phuntsok Rinpoche is gone. We've spent our lives studying these sutras and shastras. By using logic and common sense, we can see if a person really has these powers or not. We should generally be able to tell. If we truly cannot know, I will ask, what did I eat yesterday? What dream did I have last night? What did I eat this morning? I will give them several difficult questions about the past, and then a few about the future. What's going to happen to me tomorrow? If truly the events of the second day, if they can predict perfectly accurate, well, by the third day we might let them talk about their powers to a few people. Otherwise, some people, I have also taught this before, including when we examine illness here. In many cases, if you practice Chinese medicine, speak according to Chinese medicine. If Western medicine, speak according to Western medicine. If Tibetan medicine, speak according to Tibetan medicine. You feel the pulse and then say, oh, did you kill beings in a past life? Oh, let me look at your tongue. Maybe the karma you've created is very heavy. These things in general medicine, there are no such things. I also know some about medicine, but there should not be those things. When we examine a plus, what is the pulse like for someone who killed yaks in a past life? There should not be such a thing. So I hope that you're doing some virtuous deeds. That's also fine, but mainly rely on your medical skills. If you study medicine, mainly have some of these. Reciting some sutras is acceptable, but for doctors this might not be. In that case, having Khenpos or Khenmos act as doctors might actually be slightly better. Or we have specialized diviners, fortune tellers, but generally speaking, at our institute, we don't have anyone who just does that. Actually, on one hand, this is a kind of superstition. It's because people don't truly believe in cause and effect. When people feel they have no other choice, we look at the entrances of some temples in the Han region. You'll see all sorts of fortune tellers there. There are some stories. This fortune telling is such and such. Maybe they're right, maybe not. But we are half believing, half doubting. Some truly guess accurately, some not necessarily. Regardless, we will not judge if they're real or fake. But as for us, the Institute should focus on study and practice. In this way, everyone should not be so. Some people say, my roof seems to be leaking. I need a certain guru to divine to see if a mouse will come tonight. Many people have rather strange divinations. These situations are a bit laughable. So I think in the future, we should all just focus on the law of cause and effect. In Milarepa's biography, it is also said, when you previously relied on your teachers, you were so diligent. Later, when you attained accomplishment, you remained just as diligent. With your kind of diligence, we have no way. But we're also terrified of the suffering in samsara. So what should we do? We certainly can't do what you did. Later, Milarepa answered, saying, whether when I previously relied on my guru, or later when practicing, or finally when attaining fruition, all these actions on one hand, I deeply believe without doubt in the suffering of samsara, which is why I felt such a powerful need to be free. And the second thing is, I have firm confidence in karmic cause and effect, the principle that cause and effect are not the slightest bit false. If any person has these two convictions, they can be just like me, there's no problem. I remember seeing that in his life story. So I think many of us believe in cause and effect. You do not necessarily need to often be mystically mysterious. If you've done things like that in the past, everyone should confess together today. Those are unwholesome deeds and negative conditions. Next, it speaks of after ordination. The section below mainly teaches monastic discipline. Today here, there are also many lay people, so inside we need not teach in detail. We previously studied the treatise on the 3 vows. In my translation of that treatise, for example, the 253 precepts for monks, the 364 for nuns are relatively brief. These precepts should be kept. Here is no detailed teaching, it just mentions their names. When you are ordained, if becoming a monk, you might have violated the 4 defeats, the 4 root falls. For a nun, there are the 8 root fall. You can also call them the 8 prohibitions, also the 8 defeats and 8 grave offenses. Or you can also call them the prohibited transgressions. The 6 grave offenses may be the 6 dharmas. When we are probationary nuns, there are 6 rules to follow: no killing, stealing, sexual misconduct, lying, not eating after midday, and not drinking alcohol. Between nun and novice nun, there are 2 years as a probationary nun, now called shiksamana. For many, being a shiksamana is usually fine, but some people get close to finishing the 2 years, they find they can't handle the fasting. With a hungry stomach, they need to start again. The 6 rules for probationary nuns, the 13 saṅgha offenses and the 2 undetermined offenses, these all apply to the bhikshus. The 30 naisargika patayantika offenses, if you violate these, you have to temporarily give up the item involved and then confess. This is called naisargika offenses. Then 91 patayantika offenses, also 4 pratideshanya offenses. These confession means admitting it to others. After committing this, one should call out and confess everywhere. There are various minor offenses. There are 112 in the bhiksu precepts. Also the 7 ways of settling disputes, those 7 methods to end conflicts. For example, the 8 methods for settling present disputes, recollection perspective, clarity perspective. These are in the discipline. These are mainly methods for eliminating disputes. For example, if I have a conflict with someone, we first use these methods for settling current disputes. For example, between him and me, how to calm things down between us. To settle it, we first ask, who actually saw it happen? This is what we focus on, just like some rules in law today. Who has the direct proof to settle this? If not, who has witnesses? Who were the witnesses at that time? Also, what kind of reasonable doctrine and so forth. There are 8 present methods and other forms of reasoning. Also, recollection perspective, making them reflect. In the past, if 2 people were arguing, they'd have to reflect behind closed doors to see if you were correct or he was correct and so forth. Also, the saṅgha would specifically perform certain procedures for them. If they did not listen, they'd be expelled. When there are some arguments and conflicts within the saṅgha, specifically in the Vinaya Sutra, there are 7 methods for settling their disputes. I won't explain these one by one. Also, the covering grass and majority methods all exist in the discipline. So the precepts that were violated, all such precepts one by one, from daskata, meaning wrongful deeds, the lightest 112 minor offenses. We sometimes call them minor offenses or wrongful acts, up to the 4 grave offenses or the 5 inexpiable karmas, including slandering the Dharma and profound sutras, or engaging in the conduct of aniccantika and hiding your faults without repenting. These increase day and night. In the process of ordination, I just mentioned, whether ordained monks or nuns or as a novice, while in the process of ordination, all these precepts that were violated, these wrongs, should also be confessed one by one. Not only for ordination, we may have also received bodhisattva vows and tantric vows, just as taught in the 3 vows treatise. Bodhisattva vows also have root transgressions and branch transgressions. Tantric vows also have guarding the guru's body, speech, and mind 3 times 9, 27 kinds of karmic offenses, and so forth. Root transgressions, branch transgressions, extremely many. These must all be confessed one by one. If not confessed continuously like this, then day and night these wrongdoings increase, just as when we recite precepts and observe pasada. It is also every half month to prevent increase and to confess. Monastics are also like this, including our summer retreat. Every year we must have such a retreat to perform confession and increase virtuous roots. Also slandering the Dharma and profound sutras. Then, having heard what the Buddha taught, if one committed the 4 defeats just mentioned, even to the 5 inexpiable karmas, or slandering the Dharma, if not openly confessing, then with these wrongdoings one will certainly fall into the hells. Sometimes when teaching about wrongdoing, it is also especially serious. For example, in the Sutra on the comparative gravity of precept violations, even if committing one wrongful deed, not confessing it well and also having a mind of contempt, for 900,000 years one will fall into the lower realms. This should be in the reviving hell. These exist in the discipline, not to mention saṅgha offenses and defeat offenses. So generally speaking, when teaching about the discipline's permissions and restrictions, also when teaching about the faults of breaking precepts, truly it is very frightening. Many people say, I want to ordain. Of course, ordination has boundless merit, but if ordination is not successful, the daily sins and broken precepts are also very frightening. The discipline is what is called precepts established by the Buddha. For those who uphold precepts, the merit is boundless. For those who break precepts, the fault is also boundless. Everyone should also be clear about this. The Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, Shravakas and Pratyeka Buddhas cannot rescue such a person. After breaking precepts, the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas can't help. Neither can the Shravakas or Pratyeka Buddhas. No one else, your guru, the saṅgha, parents, celestial beings or worldly people can rescue them. For those who break precepts, even reciting mantras won't be enough to rescue them. There is scriptural support in the Vinaya Sutra. So today, with boundless fear and shame, we take refuge in the three jewels. Many of us here, truly some from beginningless time, have been monastics, and some have also been monastics in this very life. But ordination is easy. Upholding precepts is truly difficult. From beginningless time or in this life, any precepts you've broken while ordained these precepts that were violated, you should confess before the three jewels. From Prabhutaratna, Tathagata to the 1,000 Buddhas of the fortunate eon, some have already passed. Also the great majority of the 1,000 Buddhas of the fortunate eon or the 1,000 Buddhas of the future. In sutras like the Sutra of Buddha names, they mention the Buddhas of the past, present and future. So to the future 1,000 Buddhas and to all the present emanations of Shakyamuni Buddha, the Buddhas are all compassionate, vast and equal like parents. Bodhisattvas are spiritual teachers. Please allow us beings to openly confess. May we eliminate the obscurations of affliction, karma, and retribution from countless eons. In Tibetan, the retribution obscurations is often cognitive obscurations. Also, 4 grave offenses, inexpiable karmas, 10 unwholesome karmas, and so forth, and similar wrongdoings, we should confess one by one. We ask the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas to hear us, accept us, look upon us with care, so that the karma in our mind stream may be purified. Actually, for those of us here, we are still very fortunate. Why is that? On one hand, we have the opportunity to study Buddhism, and we also know the skillful methods of confession. Moreover, more or less, we will reflect and examine ourselves before we die. At the same time, we rely on Vajrasattva, emptiness, and bodhicitta, and various methods to eliminate our own wrongdoings. We have always worked hard at this. So I think as ordinary beings, it's difficult not to commit any sins unless they are some reincarnated tulkus, true bodhisattvas who naturally have those qualities in their mind stream. Virtuous roots, especially strong, wrongdoing extremely weak. They have such excellent habitual tendencies. But we ordinary beings, each person comes to this world with karma. Because of this, before we die, we meet these Buddhas, bodhisattvas, and teachers. We more or less perform some confession, whether we have more wrongdoing or more virtue in the end. I think for many people, as long as there is shame, as long as fear, there should be, that virtue should be a bit more. We should be able to think this way. I sometimes reflect on myself too. For anyone who has come to this human world, if you were to leave tomorrow or the day after or even next year, what would your life actually look like? I've certainly created much wrongdoing from beginningless time. Some I know about, some I don't know, some I can remember and some I can't. There's a lot of karma there. But regardless, generally speaking, perhaps the power of virtue is a bit stronger because we are not like butchers who start their work from early morning every day, killing cattle and pigs. It is not like this. We should be trying our best from we wake up until sleeping, we go to sleep, spend most of our time doing good deeds. Cause and effect are not false. Virtue and non-virtue are weighed exactly. Since good brings good and bad brings bad, although I have obscurations and afflictions, I may possibly have unwholesome conduct. But if we look at the time spent, our intentions and actual conduct, most of our time in terms of time, should be spent creating more virtuous karma. Of course, for us ordinary beings, sometimes we may have many unwholesome thoughts, but while unwholesome thoughts exist, virtuous discursive thoughts also exist. For example, in a month of 30 days, do I generate hatred every single day? Probably not. During those 30 days this month, yesterday, I was a bit unhappy with some people. Otherwise, whether with Dharma friends or others, I was fine. Over the past month or two, even yesterday wasn't that serious. I was just a bit upset. I said, I need to go teach class. They said, don't go yet, wait a bit longer. I said, all right, then I waited a bit. I might feel like I've created heavy karma, but whether it's actually that serious, I don't know. I think those of us here are also like this. Sometimes we truly feel we are terrible, but in terms of time, it's not every single day. We aren't creating constant evil like butchers or prostitutes. Our virtue and non-virtue alternate. Perhaps the power of virtue is greater, especially the power and blessings of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas are inconceivable. Everyone should find a sense of hope for themselves. Don't always feel self-destructive and despairing. Ah, I now have no use. Or living in this world is a burden to society. I don't know anyone as miserable as me. There's truly no one else. Always complaining about oneself and others, living in such a state of mind is really unnecessary. Right now, most of us are in our happiest time. We have encountered the Dharma and this human life. Every day, we recite at least some mantras that are so blessing. We often hear such excellent teachings, and we read these sacred sutras. Even reciting the Mani mantra of Avalokiteshvara, the merit is also inconceivable. So we are much better than animals, even better than many people in the world. We have every reason to be joyful. Otherwise, most people just dwell on the past, especially savor old memories. Ah, how happy I was in the past. Looking at photos, tears gradually flow. Wow, I was so good looking then. At that time, I was truly like a celestial maiden, but look at me now. Wow, I've become like this. Or in the future, I should become wealthy. In the future, I should become an official. In the future, I should accomplish. Always hoping for the future. If you don't actually experience the happiness of the present moment, you won't know if those past and future thoughts really lead to results, not necessarily. So we should have confidence in the now. I think this is quite important. When confessing, we should have a repentant mind, but we also need a sense of confidence. Otherwise, some of us lean too far to one side. This is the fourth passage of confession. Next, Prince Virtuous to See and his companions say, we now, on behalf of sentient beings and ourselves, confess today before the Buddhas of the 10 directions. What sins have beings committed since beginningless time? All have common wrongdoings that should be confessed one by one. What are they? From beginningless eons, not recognizing the Buddhas, some people do not have faith in Buddhism at all. They do not know the Buddha, such a great wise one. Also, they do not repay their parents' kindness. Now, truly, I think we Buddhists are acceptable in this regard. In the past, when some children started studying Buddhism, parents were often afraid. But actually, whether monastics or lay practitioners, Buddhists are a bit better at this. They know kindness and how to repay it. At least they won't abandon you. They won't abandon any sentient beings, let alone their own parents. Worldly people may not be like this today. Very few people truly repay their parents' kindness. There are some bank statistics on this. Those who repay loans for parents are very few. But many parents pay off loans for their children. From a certain sense, logically speaking, children repaying those loans and their parents' kindness should be very emphasized. So, because we haven't known the Buddha, haven't repaid our parents, and haven't understood wholesome deeds, relying on causes and conditions, we created all sorts of sins. These also should be confessed one by one. Sentient beings created much wrongs because they do not know cause and effect. Then it says, we have arrogance relying on family lineage, being proud of our own lineage, proud of our own wealth and treasures. Some come from noble lineage, the wealthy second generation, the elite second generation, the official second generation, and so on. What else is there? The business second generation. Huh? The celebrity second generation, children of celebrities, even the lay practitioner second generation. Arrogance because of money, or being proud because of a car or a house. Some are proud of their youth, creating all kinds of wrongdoing. These also must be confessed one by one. Some create wrongdoing through ignorance. Some create it through arrogance. Some of our Dharma friends, before ordaining, before studying Buddhism, they surely had these tendencies. Back when I was a student, I bought a pair of good shoes. They were considered quite good in the whole school. Then I was very proud for at least 1 year, called riding boots or something, long ones like that. At that time, they were relatively rare. In elementary school, my clothes were especially poor. In middle school, my father bought me a pair of shoes and a relative gave me some clothes, still considered acceptable. I felt every day I was very remarkable. Now I feel I was very ignorant, acting as one pleases, not seeing one's faults, in doing whatever one desires, completely not recognize one's own faults. Also the foolish conduct of ordinary beings covered by the darkness of ignorance. Because of the foolish conduct of ordinary beings, the shroud of ignorance and the covering of delusion, drawing near evil companions with people who are neither one thing nor another, evil companions who do not understand cause and effect, afflictions disturbing the mind through the conditions of the 5 desires, often drowning in the 5 sensory pleasures, the mind generating anger and hatred, not knowing satisfaction, being insatiably greedy, and so forth. All kinds of wrongdoing created for these reasons should also be confessed before the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. Actually, each of us should have these faults. Drawing near non-noble ones or evil friends who are not noble is also like evil friends, also generating stinginess and jealousy, jealous mind, also causes and conditions of poverty. Some truly have no choice. Because of being too poor, if one steals and such, poverty leads to creating all kinds of wrongdoing. These should also be confessed. As I just mentioned, the jealous mind. There is a sutra called the Sutra of Scolding Intention, and it speaks of several kinds of jealousy. The first is called dwelling jealousy. For example, before a guru or a special person, besides oneself, not willing for others to gather there, this kind of jealous mind. There is also one called birth jealousy, being proud of one's own birth, besides oneself growing up in such an environment, not willing for others to have such opportunities. Also wealth jealousy, regarding wealth, for example, gold, silver, and treasures. Having personal merit in this regard, one is not willing to let others possess them. Also called text jealousy, being proficient in sutras and treatises, one is unwilling to let others master them. Then there is appearance jealousy, having a fine appearance and being relatively good looking. I am the only one, I am better. It is best if others do not have this. So this jealous mind is divided into different categories in the Buddha Sutras. Just mentioned, relying on evil companions, relying on jealous mind, relying on conditions of poverty. We have created all kinds of wrongs. We confess one by one before the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. Actually, each of us truly have these issues. As we study, we are reflecting in our minds. We can visualize now the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas are before us. In our hearts, while studying and reflecting, let us also confess, relying on attraction to women or to men, using flattery, doing some very unreasonable behaviors, creating wrongdoing. This also must be confessed. If one is subservient to others and lacks freedom, under the control of others, constantly generating fearful minds, not obtaining freedom, afterward with afflictive knots, constantly disturbing oneself, causing suffering. Greed, hatred, and delusion disturbing our own mind or others, our own thirst and craving, constantly oppressing, creating all kinds of wrongdoing for these reasons. This also is worthy of confession. Sometimes we are just involuntary, truly, when in the world people can't help themselves. What worldly people say is indeed correct. Sometimes we have to meet people we do not wish to meet, to say things we do not wish to say, and to do things we do not wish to do. Perhaps the purpose of all this, maybe people will discover in the future. So in the world, not every single thing is especially satisfying to oneself. In this process, one may generate hatred, jealousy, and afflictions. We all will experience this. Since you are working here, perhaps when your superiors speak to you, sometimes you are inwardly unconvinced. Your subordinates may not listen. You feel inwardly unhappy. The people beside you, you are very good to them, but if they are not good to you, you are also unhappy. Then you may generate all kinds of afflictions. These are also worthy of confession. Some are oppressed by hatred, some are oppressed by greed, and some are with other afflictions, all kinds of afflictions. We are unable to obtain freedom. Overall, whether in the entire society today or in the entire world, we see some history of the past. Overall, it should be considered acceptable. We often think, I am the most suffering. I am a very pitiful person. But sometimes, compared with people more pitiful and suffering than us, when comparing with these, truly, I think we are not actually such pitiful people. For example, some of us practitioners may say, oh, I have nothing to eat or wear, or my conditions are too poor. But no matter how poor our conditions are, I previously went to several countries in Africa like Malawi, Namibia, Lesotho, Eswatini. In those countries, truly, once you arrive, you don't even need to visualize the suffering of samsara. You can practice contemplation every day, truly like this. It is actually very helpful for practice. Seeing these make you wonder, what kind of world is this? There is hunger and all sorts of hardships. Compared with the lives of these people, we should feel very fortunate. When it was raining just now, I was thinking, when I was small, compared with your current situation, truly there is no comparison. Just now, some male Dharma friend said, oh, what should we do about the rain? What should you do? What should we do? Especially suffering, afraid. At that time, I recalled when I was young, I had no shoes, wearing that kind of leather robe. I had no umbrella or raincoat, nothing at all. Around 8 o'clock, I would go out to herd cattle, spending all day outside on the mountaintop, sometimes raining all day long. My whole body would be soaked. No place to shelter from rain, nowhere at all. Also no forest, no house nearby. Impossible to find a shelter on the mountain. When it rained all day, sometimes the sun came out a little. I would dry my leather clothes, drying in the sun, but soon it would start raining again. I would return back at dusk, around 7 or 8 o'clock after returning. If I could have changed into other clothes, that would be fine. But back then, basically no other clothes. In winter, I had a leather robe. I was reluctant to wear that. In summer, I had a thinner leather robe. I had to wear it at night. There was nothing else to change into. But in such a life, I seem to be very happy, whether reciting mantras or singing, though my voice is not pleasant. It was like this when herding cattle. Some Dharma friends we meet now, a little bit cold, they say, what should we do? Just now I saw someone covering their head with a shawl, looking very suffering. In fact, in human life, one don't know without comparison. If there is some comparison or one encounters some suffering, it can actually be a good thing. Because in the future, ordinary hardships will seem very simple to handle. This is a simple way for us to experience transforming suffering into the path. Now, many people speak of experiencing, especially Westerners. They have all kinds of experiencing. What is experiencing? For example, if I am a husband, I want to think what my wife's suffering is like. They deliberately assume the identity of the wife to do various activities to understand. This is called experiencing. Finally, they truly feel, oh, the other party is not easy. He will have all sorts of experiences. So we shouldn't get upset over every little thing. For example, people beside you say a few words to you, I'm going to kill myself, or I'm quitting, or I'm leaving for good. Many young people now are too fragile with so-called glass heart or whatever, the so-called what kind of heart? I'm not very clear. But if you go through some tempering in your life, your mind will likely become much stronger. If the mind is strong, then many things in the world can be resolved very easily. So sometimes we also cannot be too fragile. Here it says, all actions of body, speech, and mind resulting in many sins are today confessed one by one before the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. Or being disrespectful to the Buddha, Dharma, and Saṅgha, all such sins must be confessed today, or being disrespectful to bodhisattvas and pratyeka Buddhas, the noble ones, these wrongdoings we confess one by one. Also, because of ignorance, slandering the true Dharma, failing to respect parents and teachers, teachers include one's preceptor and Dharma teacher, creating all kinds of unwholesome karma. Today we confess them all, one by one. We now make offerings to the Buddhas of the 10 directions. At that time they should have made offerings to the Buddhas of the 10 directions. Making offerings to the Buddhas of the 10 directions, may all sentient beings abide in the 10 grounds, fully possessing the qualities of 10th ground bodhisattvas, and in the future obtaining the fruition of the Tathagata's perfect enlightenment. These are their final words. Dedicating in this way. Because when we first began yesterday, it was also on behalf of sentient beings making aspirations and confession. Now it is also, may the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas of the 10 directions, all sentient beings abide in the qualities of the 10 grounds, in the future obtain perfect enlightenment. At this time the Buddha told Prince Virtuous to see, excellent, excellent, great being. You are truly a great bodhisattva. Prince Virtuous to see is very remarkable. You are skilled at discriminating your own good and bad actions, observing your own body's unwholesome karma, discovering you have such wrongdoing, then generating great fearful mind, and openly confessing all wrongdoings. At the same time, you also confess such evil wrongdoing for sentient beings, so you are a true great being. You are a true great bodhisattva, a great hero. You are therefore called an authentic holy being, Mahamahasattva. Moreover, you stay far from all afflictions. You have also separated sentient beings from thorough afflictions for a long time. You are truly a great being, a great bodhisattva, and a great hero, not wishing for your own liberation, not wishing for yourself. You instead wish for sentient beings to first obtain the fruition of the Tathagata's perfect enlightenment. You first did not dedicate for yourself, but for sentient beings in this way. Then you are an authentic holy being. In the Tibetan there are two, a true great being, a true great being. The last one has two, a true great being. Perhaps adding one more is also acceptable. Finally it is, therefore, you are named a true great being, a true great being. In the Tibetan there are these two. Then at this time, let us explain this verse. It is not much. At this time, because the Buddha acknowledged Prince Virtuous to see and the 3,000 people, and their own confession had all been completed. After this, the preceding content in the form of simply praising the Buddha in verse, they speak the following verses. Only the Buddha alone is foremost, the parent of the 3 realms, the omniscient one. Here it says, in our entire world, only the Buddha alone, actually regarding the entire trichiliocosm, all mother sentient beings and everything, can know without remainder with omniscient wisdom. Only the Buddha knows all things of all sentient beings, equal in everything, without equal. Before the Buddha, all of everything is without any inequality. All is equal in nature, equally pure and non-dual. Therefore I bow to the Bhagavan. The Bhagavan is unique. Therefore, prostrating, I pay homage to the Bhagavan. You such a very rare and honored one. In this world only you truly know sentient beings, and all your practices are of perfect equality. Prince Virtuous to see, and they first praised with this verse. Ordinary people perform kindness for their own benefit, seeking reward, giving with wealth. Should it be Ge-shi or Ji-shi, it should be Ji-shi. When ordinary beings practice giving, it is all for their own benefit. They themselves want to obtain wealth, themselves want to obtain results, and seeking reward, they only give because they expect something back. I give you half today, or I invite you to a meal today. They wait for the time it will be returned. If they invite to hot pot, they remember it very clearly. If not returned within a year, they feel inwardly unconvinced. They gradually use other ways to remind you, delicious hot pot. Ordinary beings giving all requires repayment. Great love, the victorious one, is not like that. He does not seek any reward or repayment for his giving. He loves and benefits enemy and friend alike equally. I go to him, great perseverance, for refuge. The Buddha is such a greatly diligent one. Therefore we should take refuge in and pay homage to you. The victorious one is revered among bipeds. The Buddha among the two-footed is most supreme. Among us humans, humans are often called two-footed. Among the two-footed beings, he is the most supreme and highest. In heaven and earth, most supreme. Only people with the eye of wisdom can know and see. Only people possess wisdom can see the Buddha's qualities. Ordinary people without wisdom certainly can't see, even possibly often slandering him and so forth. Even celestial beings cannot fully understand his wisdom. In our world, the most remarkable Indra, Brahma, and so forth, they also don't know all the Buddha's qualities. To all Buddhas of the past, future, and present, I bow to them all. At that time, Prince Virtuous to see, and they said, whether the present Shakyamuni Buddha, or the past Prabhutarana Tathagata, or Dipankara Buddha, the future Maitreya Buddha, Samantaprabha Buddha, to all these Tathagatas we should pay homage. We should also think this way. Often reciting some praises of the Buddha, as a Buddhist, I think it is still acceptable. We every day recite the Shakyamuni Buddha practice liturgy continuously from 2002 until now. It has basically never been interrupted in our classroom. Many of our Dharma friends also recite the Shakyamuni liturgy when praying to Shakyamuni Buddha. Some have tears streaming down their faces, especially with devout faith, continuously reciting actually the Buddha's name, even if recited once by our ears, or if we recite it once for others. Truly, this merit is great. So why did I just say, in a certain sense, we should still be very fortunate? At least we have heard the Buddha's name and mantras so many times. And we also have the opportunity to recite the Buddha's name, recite the King of Aspiration prayers every day. Having this often, this kind of opportunity, perhaps we have been human many times before, many times as other sentient beings, but perhaps a human life like this one. Whether we have had it, it is hard to say. Here, Prince Virtuous to see. And actually the Buddha in our human world is very remarkable. But only people with wisdom can truly know this. Other highest celestial beings in the world, the so-called scientists, theorists, writers now, even Nobel Prize winners, whether they can understand the Buddha's wisdom, it is hard to say. We, from the depths of our hearts to the Buddhas of the past, future, and present, should also pay homage. We should often pay homage to the Buddha. In many monasteries in the Han region, paying homage to the Buddha is truly a very good thing. During morning and evening services, paying homage to the Buddha is very good. Some of our Buddhists, when they arrive at monasteries, are unwilling to join in. Actually, if we have the opportunity, chanting sutras and pay homage to the Buddha together with them, for those who practice well, ever place is a place of practice. And everyone is a good companion for practice. Any kind of behavior is practice. It is the best and most joyful thing. If one's practice is not going well, one may not stay in the Tibetan region nor in the Han region. They are incompatible with everyone. Finally, they are left all alone, very suffering, very lonely, solitary. I think if one studies Mahayana Buddhism better and better, there is still some new understanding regarding the entire human life. It should be acceptable with everyone. Interpersonal relationships should be very good, harmonious, doing whatever things in any place. They have the opportunity to spread the Dharma and benefit beings. It is not necessarily to have a specific place, a splendid teaching hall. I need such and such conditions. First talking about conditions before even spreading the Dharma, it is not like this. Whether it's a true manifestations of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, or if bodhicitta arises in one's own mind stream, then anywhere, as long as there are sentient beings, you'll find the means to liberate them. So here it also says, performing prostrations before the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. Thus I now take refuge in the Buddha. At that time they also took refuge and paid homage to the Buddha in this way. This is like respect and making offerings to the Buddhas of the 3 times the same in the Tibetan. When they showed respect to the Buddhas, actually it was the same as the Buddhas of the 3 times. This is their verse. Following this, there is another section of verses. I think it's correct. I didn't make a mistake just now, did I? Prince Virtuous to see. And the 3,000 people took refuge, praising the Buddha with verses. Right? This is a text praising the Buddha. Today we will teach up to here.
Larung Gar Badna Sadardang Larung Gar Badna Sadardang Larung Gar Badna Sadardang